Hi, and thanks for joining me for another Cozy Girl Makes podcast episode. Oh, hello. I hope that you're having a great day, evening, week, whatever time you're having. Hope it's great. And welcome back for another semi-monthly podcast that I do every fifth video. So it ends up being about once a month. Today I've got only a few finished objects to show, a WIP, a few yarn related acquisitions, and I will also be sharing on some of my progress towards my 2024 knitting intentions. So let's just start off. There's a lot to get through. So first things first, I'm going to start with my finished objects. The first thing I finished, I don't have with me because it was a completed sample. We did talk about this one last time, but I couldn't show the colors because they were still part of a collection that wasn't out. So now that collection has actually come out, the pre-order window is closed, but I think there will still be some availability to buy from it in the future. But it is the swatches I did for Apothecary Fibers and her A Gathering of Fairies collection. I'll have a picture here of all the swatches together. We kind of talked about it last video, so I won't go into it too much, but it was really great to work with Courtney. Since I did that last episode and finished the swatches, she has actually announced that her shop is closing, which is very sad for me. I love her colors. I think the way that she combines storytelling through yarn, the bases she has too, and the colors she creates is just amazing. But, you know, I think she's making a good decision for her family, so it is what it is. But she will have one more in stock update, which I think is in the next few weeks. So do look out for that. If you like any of the colors from this swatch collection, it might be your only chance to get it, is through that. So I'll have her website linked below, but wonderful dyer, beautiful colorways, and it was great to work with her. The next thing I finished, I also don't have. This was a WIP in my last podcast, and it was the little tiny sweater swatches for Poppy and Spruce Fibers for her I Lichen You a Lot collection, which was a Valentine's collection inspired by moss, which was super sweet. And I just swatched the 10 variegated colorways in the collection into little tiny sweaters. So here's a little picture of them. They're so fun to make. I know we talked about them last time and I think I had a black and white picture, but here's the color picture, and the collection was super fun. I think the pre-order for that's also closed, but it will open up again in the future if any of the colors do interest you. But yeah, super fun. Both of those I finished the Apothecary Fibers swatches by January 24th. And I finished the sweater swatches by February 5th. So still very early on in the month, basically, yeah, over a month ago now. So the next thing that I worked on and finished is this sweater. This is the Oakley sweater by Stitching Simply, Rachel. And it's a pattern that's out now. I test knit it with another great group of test knitters, and I used the Purl Soho good wool in the color Wintergrass to make mine. And I seriously, I love this sweater. It's so simple. Like, it's simple in the color and the shape, but it fits really well. The cable is just beautiful. I love the finishings here. I always do this where like I tie a little bow in the back to tell me what's the front and back. But yeah, very beautifully, simply finished sweater in this beautiful yarn. Some of the things about this sweater, it's a raglan with the cable detail, and it's supposed to be a little bit longer than I made it, but I tend to crop things, as we know, and that held true here. It was supposed to have a funnel neck, and I ended up doing a folded over neckline, which I want to add some elastic to, actually, which I need to do soon. But yeah, added the folded over neckline, and I changed the ribbing from 1x1 to 2x1, so 2 knits, 1 purl. Just, I don't know, I felt like it matched the cable better, which has like this one little bit of pearls and then a lot of knits. I don't know. I definitely could have gone with either people did 2x2 or 1x1, but I like what I did. And then I did the same on the sleeves. I did have to use a different sewn bind off than the tubular or Italian bind off that was called for, because I had the 2 knits, 1 purl, so I couldn't Italian bind off, so it's a little bit more visible, but I kind of like that. And then same with on the hem, I did a 2x1, had to do that bind off, and I added a split hem, which the back is a little bit longer than the front. So I'm very happy with the sweater. It fits so nicely. It feels so nice. I feel put together and cute in it. And this yarn is so plush. Like, it's got just a little bit of squish to it, which I just love. It's not like overly fluffy or fuzzy. It's just like this little bit of cushion, and it like traps air really well to keep you nice and warm, but it also like lets air out, if that makes sense. It feels nice, and it feels like you kind of get this best of both worlds, where it is plush and cozy and keeps you warm, but it's not like overbearingly hot, and it's not like I often feel with overly fuzzy or, you know, super mohairy sweaters, like trapped in the heat of it and stuffy, and you get fibers in your face. I don't get that at all with this. Like, it just traps it nicely, keeps me warm. I can feel a tiny bit of the yarn since it is a little bit more rustic, but it's kind of a nice sensation. So I don't know, I'm very, very happy with the sweater. Very wearable piece, very cozy, and I can tell I'm going to be wearing it a lot for the years ahead. So that is wonderful. My last finished object, which I normally have a lot more, but I don't know, this month you'll see my WIP is kind of quite large. But my last finished object is this pair of socks. These are the Dear Bjorn socks from the 52 Weeks of Socks book. I'm forgetting the name of the designer just because I own the 52 Weeks of Socks book, so I just reference from there, but I'll have it in the description. But they are so beautiful. These nice kind of cable detail that actually, let me put them on my hands. I had to do the 2 in different directions. So there were different directions for each one to make the kind of slip stitch motif angle different ways so that they kind of come together when you're wearing them, which is super cute. And yeah, they were a joy to knit up. It was my first pair of toe-up socks as well, and that was really interesting. I actually am planning on doing another pair soon, so I liked it. It was interesting at first, trying to like figure out how it would fit and figuring everything out, but they actually ended up being really well-fitting socks. I also was very surprised with these socks, and maybe I shouldn't have been, but this was like a cable. Every single one of these, every other row is a cable to make this pattern. I know it makes sense. It's like a leaning stitch. Obviously, it's a cable, but I feel like there's other ways to do that don't involve cabling. Maybe I'm wrong, but I was kind of surprised by the every round or every other round of cabling across, like, you know, it's like a 4-stitch repeat on a 64 stitch. So it was a lot of cables. So I got really comfortable cabling without a cable needle, which is awesome. But I wasn't expecting that. So these socks were a little bit, I wouldn't say hard, but just took a little bit more focus than I thought they would. But I'm really happy with the end result, so I can't fault them. And they were really fun to work up. It's nice to have a project that takes a little bit more of your brain. The yarn I used for these is the Araucania. I speak Spanish, but every single time that I have to say a word in Spanish on camera or to someone, can't do it. But Araucania Huasco sock kettle dye yarn, and it's in the color Byzantium for this beautiful purple. I love this purple. And I was gifted this yarn by my Winter Wishes sock swap partner from winter 2023. Her name's Adina. The two of us were partnered for the sock swap that La Mercerie puts on each year, which is a yarn store, but they put it on each year where they pair you with someone else either in your country or across the world, depending on how much you're willing to pay for shipping. And then you ship each other a little kind of goodie box of some nice winter treats and enough yarn to make a pair of socks. So this was one of two of the things that Adina gifted me, and made these beautiful, beautiful socks. It was such a joy to work up that yarn, and then also the two of us worked up socks together. So she used the yarn I gifted her, I used the yarn she gifted me to kind of do like a little mini cowl. We didn't use the same pattern, nothing like that, but we both just made a pair of socks together over like a week span. So it was lovely. I will say, you may have noticed that these socks already have a lot of wear, and I walked 6 miles in them yesterday, or 2 days ago. I shouldn't have done that maybe, but here's the thing is they kept my feet really warm while I was on a walk, and I didn't mean to walk for 6 miles. So it was fun. And I like the fact that now that I have been making a lot more socks, I feel a lot more comfortable wearing them out while I'm walking or doing things like that. Sorry, Kepler is here trying to steal all of the stuff I have. So I'm trying to kick him off. But I want to wear my knits very often. I want to not let them sit in a drawer because I'm scared about them getting wear on them. So I'm okay with the fact, jeez, I gotta lock this guy out. Kepler, stop. He has just an insatiable drive for yarn. But I really like the fact that this heel is almost completely felted together, and that doesn't make me, that's fine. Like, honestly, it adds a little bit of stability for now to it, makes it a little bit stronger, and I can still continue to get a lot of wear out of these, and I'm gonna make a lot more socks. So I'm happy to have some well-worn, well-loved socks. Especially since one of my goals this year is to make more, and they're wearing quite well. I was wearing these in Uggs, which I feel like added more friction. So honestly, for like 6 miles in a pair of very fuzzy boots, this is not that bad. I could probably shave it off. But the point here is like, yeah, they've already got some wear, and maybe I should have waited to do that until I'd been able to kind of show them off. But I just strongly desire wearing my knits, and I can keep them locked away and say like, I spent so much time on this, so much effort, they're so difficult to repair, they're so difficult to like clean, you know, putting in this much effort makes me want to keep things nice. But if I just keep all my knits locked away because I'm scared about ruining them, then I'm kind of ruining them by doing that. So I'm really happy to have given these socks their first little bit of felting, their first little bit of pilling, and it'll be the first of many bits of felting and pilling most likely, and hopefully all of my knits in the next few years. You know, I'm going to maintain them and shave them, but we'll have those spots of wear and spots of love. So yeah, okay. Anyways, that was kind of out of nowhere, but those are all the things I finished. Oh, and I should mention the Oakley sweater I'd finished on February 12th. I worked on it from January 25th through February 12th. So I don't know. I think that's about 2 weeks, 2.5 maybe. Yeah, about 2.5 weeks. And then the Dear Bjorn socks I started on February 12th, and I finished them less than a week later. I don't have the exact date written down, but not too far off. So yeah, pretty light for finished objects this month, but you'll see why as I bring my WIP over. Okay, so I have a lot of mixed emotions about this guy, and we'll talk through it. So on to WIPs. This is, sorry, I'm all tangled here. This is a November jacket by Petite Knit. I've been working on it since February whatever, I don't know, 19th or something. It's March 10th right now, so less than a month, but about 3 weeks for one thing is kind of long for me since I am a monogamous knitter. And it's a great pattern. This is, as I mentioned, the November jacket by Petite Knit. It is an all over brioche pattern cardigan with double knit edges on the kind of button placket, neckline, and sleeves, and then we'll also have it on the bottom. The things about this cardigan is I don't have enough yarn to finish it. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm like 600 meters short, or about 6 balls of yarn short for what I needed. The yarn that I'm using is the Happy Chain yarn by We Are Knitters. It's kind of a chainette style wool, and I think there was some nylon content in the yarn to kind of, basically they make little tiny I-cords with a strand and then you knit with that I-cord. So it's a nice stretchy, airy yarn, and it's now been discontinued by We Are Knitters. It was in my stash for over a year. I bought it from a kit on We Are Knitters website and then realized I didn't want to make the pattern that the kit was for, and so it sat in stash. And then I decided, like, oh, I could do a brioche project with it or something, like it's an air and weight, let's see what I can find. Fell in love with the November jacket, and months ago when I was deciding what to do with this yarn, knew less about figuring out how much yarn you would need based on, you know, if you're changing which yarn to figure out the exact yardage requirements. Messed that up somehow royally. Thought I had more than enough to do the full, like, over the butt cardigan with pockets, and I don't. So I just finished my last ball of pink actually this morning, and I happen to have a ball of white of the same kind, and so I'm doing the edging in white, and it's gonna be a little bit short. I'll try it on for you. So you can't see the bottom of it. I can move. But yeah, here's close to the bottom of it. It's basically hitting right at my belly button, which is a lot shorter than I wanted. But I was knitting from stash, and this yarn is discontinued, so there's not that much I can do. And it'll still be a really comfy piece with the kind of button, or not button, with the hem. It's going to end up being probably to my hip bones, which is still a little bit longer than other pieces I've done, and it is so comfy and so squishy. So I'm not super unhappy about the fact that I'm out of yarn. It's saving me a lot of knitting time, or not saving me, but like I don't have the yarn to knit it as long as it's supposed to be. So I'm going to finish this a lot quicker because I should be adding like another 6 inches probably, but can't. So I'm going to enjoy it all the same. I think that the white is going to be okay on just the hem. I mean, it's changing the way, you know, it's changing at the hem from brioche to double knit, so I don't think it's going to look too disjointed, and it's going to be a comfortable piece. It's just the bottom that's going to be in white. The rest is all in the same pink. I might change maybe the arm cuffs. I could maybe do that in the white if I decide that it looks disjointed, but we'll see. I'm going to get a little bit further on the hem before I make that decision. So I'm happy with this piece. I've actually made no modifications to it other than the length, which I'm forced to do. But otherwise, I've knit exactly the pattern. It's been a little bit challenging, not challenging, just like it's one of Petite Knit's more advanced patterns, I would say. So the thing that I found the most difficult on this pattern was getting this area right. I still did not do it perfectly, but essentially the way this pattern starts, and I don't want to say too much because it is a paid for pattern, but you knit a little chunk of double knitting and then pick up from there to start your back panel. And then you leave some stitches live to start your front panel from on the double knitting so that this button placket continues, or not button placket, but edge, cardigan edge, I guess, continues because there are no buttons. But then on this side, since this is where you started and you picked up, and maybe I could have figured out how to kind of do provisional cast on of some kind, but Petite Knit called for doing a traditional cast on and then picking up the stitches in a certain way to make this invisible. And I really struggled like picking up my double knit stitches from my cast on edge here to make this invisible. So it's fine. I mean, it's at the back of my neck and it's not that visible, but it has been slightly challenging. There's been a few things like that. And then the instructions for this cuff were actually pretty different between the video that Petite Knit shows or links to help you and the instructions that Petite Knit wrote, at least in the English version. And the video I felt like was a lot better explained and got me the look I wanted. But yeah, just some things to note. Beware that there might be some areas in this pattern that are slightly, I don't want to say questionable, but like just, this is a slightly more difficult, more advanced Petite Knit pattern when it comes to techniques, when it comes to explaining things. So it has been interesting to do it, and it's been fun. Like I've really enjoyed working on this pattern. It's kind of forced me to slow down too, since brioche does grow so slowly, and it's a lot of stitches. It's very oversized, so it's kind of forced me to kind of just enjoy knitting, relax. Like I am feeling kind of a drive to cast on some other things, but I really want to finish this off, be happy with it before I move on. And it is a really nice, squishy piece. So I'm enjoying it despite some of the setbacks when it comes to yarn and learning new techniques, but they all make me a better knitter at the end of the day. So it's good. It's all great. But okay, that is my one WIP. As I've said before, I'm a pretty monogamous knitter, and that is true this month, especially with when I'm working on larger projects. I kind of want to hunker down, get as much progress done as I can. So we're going to move on now to the acquisition section. I do have a few acquisitions this month. I've said before I'm trying to slow down, and that's still true, but just a few things this month. So let's start on them. First thing I'll show is this fiber that I got. So I got this from the storage Akira Farms on Etsy. They sell lots of different hand-dyed fiber, and this is a combed top of 100% Polworth fibers, and dyed in this beautiful kind of peachy it's not a rainbow, peachy sunset look that I love, and I'm excited to make this into yarn one day. I say one day because I've tried spinning it a few times and I'm struggling currently, but I do actually have a class scheduled that I'll talk about that later. To go with the fiber, I first bought a Turkish drop spindle because I've heard that these are really nice because when you spin differently so that your end ends up down here, or like your beginning of your spun yarn is here and your end is up here, so you can actually ply it together instead of having to make two separate ones to then ply together. You can ply like the same spin together, which seems really nice to me. Would make some of the steps a little bit easier, I think, for myself at least. But I really struggled with figuring out how to like attach the fiber to this and get it to spin well. So I put that on pause and I ordered a drop spindle. I don't know if this is a normal size for a drop spindle. It's like the size of my head. It's bigger than my head. And I do have a small head. But still, it's like longer than my head and it's heavy. And I've tried one or two times to spin off this, and I'll actually be taking this with me to a class that I scheduled in the next few weeks. But I think this is going to be better for beginners, and hopefully I can learn how to draft at least with this guy and get sort of familiar with the spinning and then switch to the drop spindle or the Turkish spindle. So we'll see there, but acquired those three things for hopefully a new fiber hobby. We will see. I have to successfully do it at least once, but it's been fun to kind of be a beginner at something again. Super frustrating, but very fun too. It's kind of nice to like not have any expectations because you don't know what you're doing. So it's been nice. The next thing I got or my next acquisition is these buttons. I think I showed these on my spring knitting plans, but these were sent to me by Marlene Knits. She is based in Germany and was hosting a giveaway to say thank you for, I think it was 2,000, I don't know. Say thank you for some milestone in her YouTube career, was hosting a little bit of a giveaway. And I love Marlene. I watch her often. So I was commenting just as a viewer, not as like a podcaster or anything. And I was chosen. And so she sent me these buttons from Pigeon Wishes, and they're so cute. It was funny. We had like a miscommunication about my address, so they ended up being shipped all the way here, and then like the numbers for my address were missing, so they were sent all the way back to Germany, and then we talked again, and then finally came back. So these have been across the ocean 3 times to get to me, so which makes them all the more special. And yeah, I'm just super grateful for Marlene sending these my way, and they're so pretty. Like, I love these, and I think that Pigeon Wishes, I can order from them locally as well, and I'll definitely be checking them out in the future for buttons as well, because they have some beautiful buttons that I feel like often with a resin button or an acrylic button, I'm not sure what these are made out of, maybe resin, they might look a little bit cheap or too plasticky, but these ones are just really well done to replicate kind of that seashell look very nicely. They're like fully smooth, and yeah, I just think they look really classy and nice, and I would love to order more from them in the future, but excited to use these soon. Next thing, so I sample knit for Explorer Knits all the way back in November, gave them that sample knit in December, and finally got my sample knit compensation yarn. They were super busy, so totally get it. Had Christmas, everything, but I think about 2 weeks ago, I finally received it, and so exciting. So I have 3 of each of these. I just felt like grabbing the 2 of them because I do have the cat that will try to steal anything, and so the less yarn I have out that I have to monitor, the better. So I hope it's okay that I only got 2 of them out, because I didn't feel like keeping him away from 6 skeins. But so these are both in the colorway Docile by Explorer Knits. It was from one of their collections a few years ago. I don't know exactly which one, but I just, as a sample knitter, was able to choose any yarn color from their colorway library on any base, and just was given the same amount that I knit for them. So I knit a sweater for them that took about 5 skeins, or would have taken about 5 skeins for my size. I really liked the way they did this, where they said, here's the pattern you're knitting. The compensation for it is as many skeins as you need for knitting this pattern for yourself. So, you know, they requested the smallest size for themselves, which I knit up. And so it used like 3 skeins of yarn. The pattern for me would have taken 5 skeins of yarn. So I was given 5 skeins, which was so nice. And then I wanted to have the same amount of Surrey, or I wanted to have the same amount of each so that I could make a sweater with as much as I could out of each. And Allie, the owner of Explorer Knits, was so nice and just threw in the 6th one for me. So I really appreciated that. So this is the Surrey Alpaca Lace base on Docile, and this is the Earthy Sock base. I will say about this is 100% non-superwash, and you might notice it is a tonal from Explorer Knits, which are known for having really, really good color, no color pooling, essentially. They're known for like just being a really well done, low variety tonal where the color is well laid, I guess, or like well dispersed. And you may notice that there is a lot of kind of color variation in this one. That is because it's on their non-superwash base. It's just a different process than their superwash base. But I really like the way this looks, and it'll calm down a little bit when paired with this, but I do really kind of love the the way it looks. So I'm really excited to knit these up. I have a sweaters quantity and am likely making a kind of lace cardigan with them soon, which I talked about that in my spring knitting plans video if you're interested. I don't need to plug that here, but I know a lot of people watch both, so I don't want to overgo into things. Next acquisition I have is another sample knit compensation. So I talked a little bit before about knitting the sample swatches for Apothecary Fiber Co. And I was gifted a gift card for doing that to her shop. And given that she had a limited pre-order, I had to kind of spend it then. And since her shop is closing, had to spend it. So I did pick up 5 skeins of this color, which is the colorway Dust Bunny from the A Gathering of Fairies collection. It's this beautiful kind of warm grayish beige color that I think is very nicely subtle. It's very subtle, but it's got some tiny bit of like tonal variegation to it. I fell in love with this color when I swatched it, and I knew I wanted a full garment in it. And so I ended up getting 5 skeins of this in the Druid DK base, which is 100% superwash. I'm really excited to have a 100% superwash. I'm not pairing this with any sort of fluff. It's just going to be this yarn on the DK base in a superwash, and I'm going to make a cardigan with it, and I'm likely going to do these buttons with it. I'm so excited to have it because I just think it's going to be so comfortable and wearable, and one of those knits that I can worry a little bit less about, since the superwash does allow me to, if absolutely necessary, throw it in the washing machine on cold, of course. Don't dry it, but I can, throw it in the washing machine. It's also not going to ever irritate my skin. I do pretty well with most fibers. I tolerate alpaca well. I just finished a sweater in Highland wool. Like, I can wear scratchier wools, but I do have eczema and I do have sensitive skin, so even like the softest fiber can sometimes irritate me, but I know with the superwash that it will never irritate me. So I'm excited to just have a piece that I can easily throw on and not worry too much about, and the color's beautiful. So yeah, very excited about that. And yeah, it was a compensation yarn. The next acquisition I have is kind of another fiber craft, but I made a little yarn holder out of macrame. Near me is one of those places where you can go and have a drink with friends and then craft, and one of the crafts they offer is macrame. So I went there a few weeks ago with my mom, and I really wanted to make something to basically hold either balls or cakes of yarn. And I'm really happy with it. I modeled this after like an onion holder or an apple holder that I've seen others make. But it was really simple if you know anything about macrame. It's just a bunch of double square knots to kind of hold everything together. And I just hang this up on my wall with my caked up yarns. And I think it looks really nice. It was really easy to make, and it was fun to like do something else with my hands that still was pretty similar to knitting. I'm completely different, but still involved using my hands to kind of make little knots and manipulate a fiber of some kind, but got me a really different outcome and did not take long at all. I think that took me like an hour. So it was wonderful and super fun, and I think it looks really cute near kind of the rest of my yarn storage as well. Okay, we're nearing the end of acquisitions. I know that some folks don't like it, so I hope that you're sticking around and doing okay. But next thing I got is this set of shorty needles from Knit Picks. For Leap Day, they were doing 50% off certain items. So this was 50% off, and it was only $30, which is a really good deal for a interchangeable set of needles. I was looking at this set for a really long time because I despise Magic Loop. I hate it so much. I'll do it if I need to, but I really prefer not to have to work Magic Loop ever. And the shorties is going to allow me to work my sleeves of my sweaters without needing to do Magic Loop, which I'm so excited for because I do it, but I really hate it. And I've ended up before like stretching out my ribbing, trying to avoid doing magic loops. So I think that it's just for the best if I have a shorty set so that I can work at like a 9-inch circumference. So I'm excited to use these. They go from a US 4 to a US 10 or 3.5 millimeters to 6 millimeters. And yeah, they're cute, and they were a really good price. And then final acquisition, given that I was looking at Knitpic's website for those needles, I also happened to see that this was 50% off. Both of these were. This is their Capretta fingering weight base. It is 80% merino, 10% cashmere, and 10% nylon yarn. And it feels wonderful, and it's undyed. And then this is their Hawthorne fingering weight base, and it's a sock dye blank. So where it's all knitted up, and then you dye this and then pull it all apart, and then you can knit up your socks, and you just have a little bit more control of how the end result of your knit socks is going to look because you're dyeing it well knit. I got the 2 of these because I'm really interested in trying dyeing yarn this summer, or just in the next few months. It doesn't have to be the summer. It could be earlier, it could be later, but I am really interested in doing that, and they were both half off, so I think this was like $10 it was $10. I got 2 of them. I think this was also about $10. And this will be enough for a pair of socks. These 2 I could make a t-shirt out of. I'll probably dye with one of my friends. I could make both of us a pair of socks, not sure yet, but essentially I just wanted a little bit of yarn I could play with to dye, because I'm really interested in trying natural dyeing it, maybe with like avocado pits I've seen, onion skins, red cabbage, I don't know. So excited about that. And then with this one, I want to try to flower press on it. So just gather a bunch of different flowers and press them on and kind of let them dry on the knit fabric, and then pull it all apart. And I think that'll make a really interesting look, and we'll see. It could be a total fail, but I'm excited to try. So those were my acquisitions. It kind of piled up. I'm still on a yarn ban, which I showed 3 different things of yarn, but here's the thing. 2 of them were sample knits. That one of them I agreed to do the sample knit before my yarn ban. The other one I agreed to during the yarn ban, but the gift card I had to use then, so use it or lose it. I wasn't gonna end up not being paid basically if I didn't use it. And then the other ones, I'm treating them more as kind of a bare input for now, these 2 undyed sock yarns or yarns, because I'm not going to use them for quite a while, and they're really for another hobby first. Like, they're for learning how to dye yarn before they're for knitting. So I could be kind of skirting around this, but I think that they are different. I'm still holding more true to a yarn ban than not. But yeah, those were my acquisitions. I added last time I did a podcast this kind of inspiration section, and folks seem to like it, so I'm doing it again today. The first inspiration I had this past month was I found this fiber shed. So it's called the Mountains and Plains Fiber Shed. It's a Colorado-based one, but I've heard there's some all over the country. But essentially, it is a coalition or group of local businesses that are involved in fiber to some regard, whether they're a sheep farm or a yarn store, a yarn dyer, a mill, like tons of different folks that are involved in somehow the process of making yarn. There are even some like hand knitted goods sellers on there, but essentially it's a community of folks that are supporting each other in kind of this fiber shed space, and all local, which I really admire. I think that's really cool, and really goes to the heart of like what I love most about knitting and what I love most about fiber in general is this community aspect. And, you know, they do a lot to protect the animals we all care so much about, to make the yarn, protecting our natural environment, supporting each other, like having sustainable businesses, having kind of businesses that regenerate both our communities and our land. super important, super lovely, and they're like my favorite yarn store, Lula Fay Fiber in Boulder, is a part of the Fiber Shed. Another shop that I'm really interested in purchasing from in the future, but Yarn Band is on there. I forget their name right now, but I'll have it up on the screen. They do naturally dyed, hand-dyed yarns, which is really cool, and have some really interesting yarns in there. But yeah, it's just really cool to find this kind of fiber shed where folks are working together in the fiber space to just have a lot of admiration for fiber in our craft and working together on that. So I highly recommend seeing if you have one of those in your area and seeing, if you can support the businesses part of that are part of that fiber shed a little bit more, because I just think it's like they should definitely be rewarded for taking part in such a wonderful thing, building this community, caring about what they're doing more than just, making a profit. So I just like that a lot. It makes me happy that to find an example of community and working together and intentionality in our fiber community. So yeah, check them out. Another thing that really inspired me this month was I found Disco Fibers. They recently, this is mostly a destash site run by someone, just like a really wonderful way as well to support our community and do something beyond knitting, do something beyond purchasing yarn while still purchasing yarn or knitting or whatever. But a great just example of using a platform you have for something good, or craftivism, So I was really inspired by that this month as well. And yeah, those are the two inspirations I had this month. I think, as I've said before, there will be others in the future that are more product-based, more like this project really inspired me, or this pattern's really cool, or this yarn store. But this month, those two examples of community and just looking beyond oneself just really spoke to me. So anyways, I'm moving on quickly to some of my progress on my 2024 knitting intentions. The first thing on my list was exploring new fibers, and I'm getting there. I mean, I got some Polworth fiber. I just need to make it into yarn so I can actually kind of experience it. So nothing really yet there. Bringing my stash down. I have brought in more yarn than I knit out this month due to sample knit compensation. But I did get out 1,200 meters of yarn, so maybe not. No, I did, but close. It was close to keeping kind of net zero in and out. So it is what it is on that. And I'm happy with the progress I've taken on just thinking more mindfully about my stash as well, not feeling a huge urge to shop every pre-order just because I think things are pretty, or not feeling an urge to stop in a yarn store just because I'm near one. So I think that, it doesn't have to be a perfect yarn band for it to still have lasting impacts. And it's not really the yarn band part of the goal is really more of changing the mindset than it's not the outcome I want is to not buy yarn. The outcome I want is to be more intentional about the yarn I purchase. And I'm doing that by first not buying yarn to see what I really miss, what I really need, what I am just buying because I'm used to buying it, things like that. So I think it's going well overall. Knitting from patterns I own was another one of my goals, and I've done that really well. I, at the beginning of the year, set a 2-month ban on purchasing patterns, and I haven't bought a pattern in that 2 months. It's been a few weeks since then, and I still haven't bought any knit patterns. I am also planning some of my own designs, or thinking more about how I can modify patterns I already own to avoid kind of repurchasing similar patterns. I think, of course, everyone who puts time and effort into designing a pattern, if you are inspired by that, interested in knitting it, don't try to 100% rip it off. But, just being more thoughtful about I really love the way this pattern looks, but I own a very similar pattern that I would just need to like tweak slightly to get closer to that look. Not copy, not replicate, but get close to it, make me happy, because there's reasons I've already bought these patterns or already knit them. So I've been thinking a lot more mindfully about, you know, what I can do before purchasing a new pattern. Of course, I think pattern designers deserve our support, and if I am in love with a pattern, I'm never gonna just rip it off or like get as close as I can to something. If there is a pattern that I'm just like, I love that, I love the way it looks, I'm gonna knit that pattern, give that designer my money, give that designer credit, because they put it a lot of effort in. But for things that are more simple, or there's one detail of a pattern I really like, but the rest of it I'm like, oh, it's like nice, trying to incorporate kind of, oh, that's an interesting detail. Maybe I could take that little detail, tweak it, make it my own in a different pattern or in my own design. So things like that, just being more intentional now about like how to kind of be more creative and modify things to get what I want exactly, instead of just trusting in a designer or having to find the perfect design already existing, because sometimes it doesn't exist. Or sometimes, you know, I don't need to spend hundreds of dollars on patterns. Like patterns are about $10 each, and if I can just tweak something, I'm gonna do that. So I'm really happy about my mindset shifting on that as well. Deepening yarn knowledge was another one of my goals, so that really came around to trying spinning and trying dyeing yarn. I showed acquisitions for both, so we're making progress. I haven't done either yet, but making progress. I tried spinning on my own. I've tried watching quite a few videos and just practicing as much as I can. And I don't know, I cannot draft on my own. Like, to get the fibers out enough to spin without them breaking apart, I'm really struggling with. So I actually signed up for a class around me. In 2 weeks, I'll go to this class to teach me how to spin. So I'm really excited to do that. And then hopefully I can really dive into my own spinning. But I felt like I just needed someone to sit down and actually show me instead of trying to watch videos, and it wasn't really sinking in. So excited for that. And then we can continue on. And then as far as the dyeing, I bought the yarn I want to dye, and I just need to start researching like best natural dyes to use on wool, how to do that, and then I'll get into it in the next few months, which will be really exciting. Another one of my goals was expanding my knitting knowledge. No progress there. We can just move on. I've been doing brioche a lot lately, which I've done before. Really no new techniques other than I cabled without a cable needle, which was cool on these socks. But I've cabled before, just I did it without a cable needle. So not really any new techniques, but working on it. It's cool. And I've got some plans as well to try new stitches and do things like that in the future. Make more socks was another one of my goals, and I got my February socks done. I'm trying to make a pair of socks a month, so got my February socks done. I still need to do my March socks, but feeling good about that. Wearing my knits more often, I'm feeling good about. I think, I showed my socks that I made, my Dear Bjorn socks, that are already worn in. And yeah, as I'm knitting more and more and making more and more garments, like, things feel a little bit less special because I know I can make something similar, or I know I have a million. And I am also learning how durable knitting actually is, and how, if I take care of my knits well, as far as blocking them, re-soaking them, de-pilling them, like, they're going to last a long time. They're not going to disintegrate on my body. Feeling a lot more comfortable with just wearing them out and about. I made a terrarium in one of my sweaters a little while ago. The place where I made the macrame, they also do terrariums, and my mom was with me and chose a much more complicated macrame, so it was taking a lot longer. And so I also decided to do a terrarium, and I was wearing one of my hand knits. I was like, I'm gonna walk out of here with a bunch of soil all over me, and that's fine. Like, I know how to clean it, and feeling a little bit less sentimental, and I need to keep all of my knits super, super nice. I'm not going to wear them to a rave. I don't go to raves, but I'm not going to wear them somewhere where I know I'm going to get dirty and gross and not feel comfortable with that. But I'm feeling a lot more comfortable with wearing them on standard mess kind of days where I know, they might get a little bit dirty, they might get a little stained, but that's okay. That's fine. I can either clean it or learn to live with it. So yeah, I've been wearing them more, styling them more. I've posted like 2 videos now about trying to style knits, and thinking more about what I can bring into my wardrobe on the purchase side to complement the knits I'm bringing in, so that I have a really seamless wardrobe of things that I really want to wear with my hand knits. So making progress. Knitting less was another one of my goals this year, and I mean, I've been working on the same project for 3 weeks, so that's kind of knitting less as far as like quantity of things I'm working on when it comes to this guy. So that's good to like really refocusing my efforts on like one thing, just thinking about this one thing. And I was able to kind of really be thoughtful about like what to do about the edge here, of if I should have started the edge when I still had enough pink to finish it, or if it would be okay with the white. And felt like I did take the time I needed to make that decision and walk away from it. I also have been really into, I've been listening to the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. So I haven't knit quite as much as I normally do, because even though it's an audiobook, I've just been so enthralled in it that I'll like find myself that I'm just like sitting, not with my knitting. Like it's in my lap, but I'm just not knitting because I'm so like interested in listening. And I've been walking a lot more, trying to listen to my book, things like that. So I have knit less, but there have been some moments where working on this garment, since it is so big, I've just been like, I want to like get through this piece, like just get through, and kind of push myself there. So still kind of work to do on like treating knitting like a hobby, not a job, sometimes, but it's good. It's good. And part of me, I've realized, like, ever since I was a child, I do some, like, my favorite hobbies or my favorite things to do have always been, like, treating myself like a child in a factory. Like, I would factory produce, like, break up the steps of making an art project, and I would like make 4 art projects at the same time, where I'd do like each step, like I'd outline everything first, and then I'd come in with color for like all 4 of them at the same time. And like I just kind of like acting like a factory worker, or like I don't know, not a factory worker, but I like pushing myself, I guess, which like I don't know what that says about me, but it also does mean that like I'm never gonna fully enjoy just taking things at my own pace, or taking things really slow and feeling super relaxed about it, and just like picking it up, putting it down. Like one of the main drivers for me is like getting things done and seeing progress come out and like working for something. So trying to strike a balance between like my internal drivers there and like what I value and how I find joy out of knitting, with like not overtaxing myself, especially not overtaxing myself physically, but also mentally, and just like leaving space for that joy and the inspiration and creativity to take as needed. So still like kind of an internal debate there, but it's good. I'm working on it. And I feel like I made some progress this month. My other goal, which kind of went with knit less, is fewer deadlines. I actually had no deadlines this month, no sample knits. I do need to finish something. I need to start and finish something for my friend's birthday in April, but otherwise, no deadlines, which has felt kind of nice. It's been a change of pace since I had like so many deadlines from October through end of February. I had a lot, so it's been nice to slow down. And then my final goal was more community and less content. And overall, that's been good. I still like every time I'm sitting down to watch a video from another podcaster or just another knitting video, I make sure I do have the mental energy to also fully engage in that video, comment on it, and be a member of a community, be like an actual watcher, not just a viewer, I guess, if that makes sense, or an actual viewer, engage, not just watch. And I'm trying to do that more on Instagram too. I don't know, the short form content for me makes it so much easier to scroll. So I am still trying to like retrain myself to comment or like things more, to actually engage more. And then also, as I mentioned, I've been listening to A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I've been like very deep into that. So I honestly have not watched any sort of knitting video in like a week because I've just been listening to audiobooks. I started the first book of A Court in Thorns and Roses. It's like a 5-book series. On Thursday of last week, it is now Sunday, so it's been like 10 days, and I've listened to all of the first 3 books. So that's, for context, about 65 hours of listening. So it's been a lot. I listen to them while I'm working if I can. Like if I'm not in a meeting, I work from home. So while I'm working, I've been listening to them instead of watching TV, instead of any time I would normally spend watching podcasts. I've been listening to those books. So that'll slow down again soon, and I will be back to watching my podcasts and commenting more frequently because I do miss it. It's addicting. But yeah, those are kind of my knitting intentions and my reflections on them. I normally have a recommendation section at the end, and I recommend A Court of Thorns and Roses, but I've already talked about it a few times. They're a great series of books. They're very popular right now. They're a lot more than I thought they'd be. In the past, I'd never wanted to really read them because they have kind of this reputation of being just kind of smutty and just like fairy smut. There's fairies in it. But they're really good. I don't know. They like the like image of love, of like true love in these books is just wonderful and like makes me really happy. And how like strength is portrayed, and just, yeah, there are some like sex scenes if you're not into that, but otherwise like they're also just really a good story and really sweet. Like the love between some of these characters is just like really sweet and does have some things you can kind of take away for yourself if you are interested. But yeah, with that, I'll wrap it up. I've been talking for like an hour, so I'll be back next week with another video, and thank you for tuning in this week. I hope you're working on something fun. I hope I kept you company with a knitting project for like an hour. Again, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.